Your support helps us bring you programs you love. Go to wyomingpbs.org, click on Support, and become a sustaining member or an annual member. It's easy and secure. Thank you.
A record-breaking number of women were nominated for the 4th Annual Wyoming Women of Influence Awards, sponsored by the Wyoming Business Report. The awards were developed to celebrate women in business from across the state, women who have made significant contributions to their industry and often in their own community as well. Our Wyoming Chronicle cameras traveled to Laramie earlier this year to visit with the honorees. Wyoming's Women of Influence Awards, next on Wyoming Chronicle.
I am delighted to be with you today to honor some of Wyoming's amazing women. Even though this awards program has only been around a few years, I think this is year number 4, I get the strong sense that it has quickly gained a great deal of stature and respect. Certainly the list of previous recipients is distinguished and impressive, and I really look forward to recognizing and meeting today's recipients from our state's various business, education, government, healthcare, and nonprofit sectors. I have learned that while we in Wyoming justifiably take great pride in being the equality state, the first in the nation to grant women the right to vote, there certainly is room for more work in the area of gender equity and in seeing more women in positions of leadership, both in the private and the public sectors. And that's why I'm so happy to see programs such as the Wyoming Women of Influence Luncheon and Awards Program, which recognizes women who in many cases have overcome significant barriers to achieve levels of distinction in their fields. And so today's recipients, I say congratulations. In my case, I was raised on a farm in South Dakota, and the very first job that I ever had for pay was waitressing at Prairie Junction Truck Stop. When I took breaks, I would sit in the break room, and I still remember looking up on that wall and seeing a sign that said, federal minimum wage, $2.10 an hour. And do you know what I made at that time? Yep, $2.10 an hour. It certainly would have been so easy to be negative about my employer or perhaps about my wages, but in reality, somebody gave me the chance to work. And it was then my responsibility to develop the skills and to get the education and really to figure out a way to add value so that I could make more than minimum wage in my life. I was certainly not going to wait for someone in some distant capital to decide to raise that wage for me. It was my responsibility to make a difference for myself and for others. So much of our success as women has to do with confidence, believe it or not. Because if we don't see ourselves as emerging leaders, then we don't take advantage of the opportunities presented to us, and in turn, we don't take risk, and then ultimately, we don't move up in our careers. I recently read a wonderful article that I would suggest to every one of you women in here. It was in the Atlantic, and it was called The Confidence Gap. It was about women who are less self-assured than men. And yet, the article said, we know that confidence matters nearly as much as competence in our pursuit of success. The authors noted that there are both social and biological reasons for the gap, but there's also really good news, and that is that the predisposition to be less confident can be overcome with effort. The authors wrote this, and I quote, "For decades, women have misunderstood an important law of the professional jungle. It's not enough to keep one's head down and plug away, checking items off a list. Having talent isn't merely about being competent. Confidence is a big part of that talent. You have to have it, confidence, to excel." One of the key aspects of developing confidence, they say, is risk-taking, failure, and perseverance. Fear of failure may prevent us from unpleasant experiences, but it also keeps us from opportunities and ultimately from success. In this article, a psychology professor at my alma mater, Ohio State University, defined confidence as the stuff that turns thoughts into action. I love that. The stuff that turns thoughts into action. In turn, taking action bolsters one's belief in your ability to succeed. So confidence accumulates through hard work, through success, and even through failure.
My name is Stephanie Tubner. I'm the President CEO of Blue Federal Credit Union, which was formerly Warren Federal Credit Union. We recently went through a merger, and so I was influential in that decision. So as an influencer for women, I've had the opportunity to be in my role now for 16 years. Banking and finance, typically, particularly at leadership level, is a male-dominated field. So I've really had the opportunity to start leading women throughout actually the country, and that's been a really interesting opportunity for me, but as well as in Wyoming, having been a University of Wyoming graduate, both my undergraduate and master's, and so I feel as though I've had the opportunity to really be a woman of influence in Wyoming, not just in the country or in my industry, but just in Wyoming for people that, I hear it a lot, actually people that I've graduated with, that you still live in Wyoming and you have a really great job. There are really great jobs for women in Wyoming if you have the confidence and the interest in pursuing them and really stepping outside the box to do it. I feel my role in the community is obviously a leader. However, Warren Federal Credit Union, now Blue Federal Credit Union, we're huge advocates and huge supporters of our communities that we serve. And a big step in that is getting out and representing women in other entities. So I've served on a number of boards, both professional as well as personal interests. The Wyoming Children's Society, I try to really be an advocate for adoption in Wyoming, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, which I believe is a huge benefit to the community as well, both from a business perspective as well as the networking. It's this opportunity to really get to know people and be out there. I have 2 boys too, so I have the opportunity to be really involved in their lives and activities and sports, and to represent for them what women can be. My hope is that someday they look for a spouse that maybe epitomizes what a woman in leadership would be as well. So I think it kind of goes to all levels.
I'm Angie Guyon. I'm the General Manager of the Wyoming Dinosaur Center. We are a world-class dinosaur museum. We have a fossil collection from all over the world, and we pride ourselves in keeping science up close and personal. From teaching young children up to senior citizens, we have many different programs that we offer at our facility. We've grown from a thought, actually, and someone's dream of showing fossils in the state of Wyoming and actually digging the fossils, to a world-class museum that offers not only a natural history museum, but offers digging programs where you can actually participate in the science. And we pride ourselves. We just mounted a Camarasaur last year for our 20th anniversary, and most of the skeleton was dug by visitors and families and children that are interested in becoming a paleontologist and just interested in the science. I'm extremely honored to become a Women of Influence in the state of Wyoming. It means a lot for our community and our museum, but following your dreams and actually having the can-do attitude and realizing that there is nothing that's off limits. There are no gender barriers, and whatever a man can do, a woman can do. And for the young women coming up, I just encourage them to, if they have a dream, if they have a passion, if they are leaning one way or another, to go for it. Don't put anything aside. You can achieve anything you put your mind to.
My name is Kim BYRD, and I'm with CASPER College. I have been the Vice President for Student Services for the past 3 years, but have been with CASPER College for 25 years. When I see young women come into CASPER College, I think about the potential that they have. In one of the roles that I've played at CASPER College was as the single parent coordinator. Obviously, I worked with many single women that were dependent on services through Department of Family Services, such as food stamps, daycare assistance, and so on. And I am honored to be able to work with those students as they come in, knowing that they want to better their lives and the lives of their children. So I see great potential One of the benefits that I've had of being at Casper College is to see that progression of those students. And one of the best times that I've ever had in my life is graduation, when I see them fulfill their dreams, not only for themselves but also for their children to be successful and get off those supported systems that they came in on. When I consider the role of women, I do think about Wyoming in the equality state. I've been fortunate to work in an educational system where I can watch women grow and become leaders, not only in their communities but within the state. And it's been a pleasure to be able to be part of that.
I'm Allison Gee, and I manage the land department for Cloud Peak Energy, which is a coal mining company based out of Gillette, Wyoming. My role as the manager of the land department for Cloud Peak Energy is to basically ensure that our company has all of the land and mineral and water access that's required for mining. Along with that, I get to work with a variety of landowners, mineral owners, governmental agencies, and also recently with the Native American tribe, the Crow Indians up on the Crow Reservation. So I am working in a field that is heavily male-dominated in the mining industry. I also, as an attorney, am in a field that has heavily been dominated by men. So oftentimes I'm the only woman in the room for meetings, and I find that I bring a little more creativity, more social awareness to the process, and maybe soften things sometimes, which my male colleagues seem to appreciate. So one of the challenges, I think, is to make sure that you are true to yourself as a woman and that you don't become hyper-aggressive in order to try and compete in male-dominated areas such as energy or law, but to be true to yourself. I grew up and was very fortunate growing up in Gillette to rodeo, and was pretty successful in that, which taught me a lot of perseverance, tenacity, confidence, and how to overcome challenges. And I think it's good for young girls to compete in some type of sport or activity where they are outside of their comfort zone. Those are the skills that really help you when you're out in the workforce to succeed in tough situations. So,
my name is Gay Woodhouse. I'm an attorney in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'm with the law firm of WOODHOUSE, RODEN, NETHERCOTT now, and I've been practicing law since 1978, so 38 years. I was Wyoming's first attorney general, female attorney general, becoming attorney general in 1998, serving until 2001. It was a tremendous honor to actually be serving as the only female attorney general so far in our state's history, and to be honored in that way and to be able to represent both women and the state of Wyoming as a woman in that capacity. The practice of law is a man's world still to a great extent in Wyoming, as is government, still very male dominated. It was a challenge, but it was one of those that I just chose to do my best and to kind of ignore that there may be any bias towards gender or towards me because I was a woman. I took on the roles of deciding that I would try to be the best in my career and do the best job I could, and so that my gender was not a factor. And they'd say, well, she's a woman, or she's only a woman, or something like that, so that it really wasn't noticeable to me on my side that people did view me as, oh, this woman attorney, this female attorney, this lady attorney, this woman attorney general, and somehow make that a derogatory remark. And my hope for young women is always to just find that next gap. What needs to be filled? Because that's what leaders are really doing. They are seeing a need and they're stepping into that role. They're doing it regardless of whether they're male or female or who else is on the playing field. They step into the gap, they fill the gap, and they say, what can I do? How can I make this a better situation? How can I make this a better organization? How can I make this organization run more efficiently, more effectively? Be the one, step up, take the leadership role. They're always open. They aren't male or female. There are leadership roles open for any person that's willing to step up and say, hey, I want to serve, I want to help, and I want to make this a better community, organization, or anything that I'm involved in.
I am SAMIN DADELAHI. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Wyoming Community Foundation. The Wyoming Community Foundation is a statewide foundation, and as the Chief Operating Officer, I'm responsible for all of our grant-making initiatives and all of our outside grant-making, and then internally I'm responsible for all operations. I, at the University of Wyoming, graduated with a master's degree in entomology, and my specialty was parasitoid wasps, tropical parasitoid wasps. So I did some graduate research in the jungle, and it was a lot of fun. And then, like many graduates out at the University of Wyoming, I finished school and I wanted to find a way to stay in Wyoming. So I love Wyoming. And I started looking for jobs, and of course, every job that I applied for, I thought for sure I was a shoo-in. You know, I'm a graduate, I've got a master's degree, what can't I do, really? I applied for everything and was positive I was gonna get every single job I applied for. And then I didn't get a lot of job offers because I have a master's degree in taxonomy, entomology. Not the best fit for the things I was applying for. And I ended up at the Wyoming Community Foundation, and the president at the time, John Freeman, really valued a liberal arts education, and he ended up hiring me as the grants administrator. And at the time, he said it was a risk, but he really liked my background. And so he took me on his staff, and it was a wonderful job. I learned so much about Wyoming. It gave me an opportunity to travel all over the state and to learn about nonprofits. I'd never worked for a nonprofit before, and I'd never started to learn so much about all the different kinds of nonprofits in the state. And it's fun. I get to do different things every day. And so by sticking with the Wyoming Community Foundation, my job slowly changed over time from grants administration to program officer. And a program officer really works directly with the nonprofits, learning about their needs and how we can make better grants to meet their needs. And from program officer to senior program officer to chief of operations. And as chief of operations, it's designed really around my skill set, which is based on knowing a lot about the nonprofits in Wyoming, and then based on understanding a lot about the Wyoming Community Foundation because I've been there for a long time. When I see young women in Wyoming today, I am impressed by the fact that they have no fear. Young women today are fearsome creatures. I have trained myself to be scary, and they're not even scared of me. So when a young 25-year-old or a 22-year-old walks into the office, these women are so magnificent. They are so impressive. And my first thought was to talk to them about not being afraid to negotiate for a salary, not being afraid to have the big idea, but they're not afraid of that. When I give that kind of advice, I'm talking to me at 25. I am not talking to the 25-year-old woman of today. So my message today would be a little bit different. My message would be, have a little fear. A little fear is a good thing because the status of women can change at any time. The workplace that they have today is different than the workplace I had even in the 1990s, and that's a different workplace than the 1970s. When I was looking for jobs, there was a young woman who was fired as a school teacher because she was an unmarried, pregnant woman in a school. Well, that was immoral behavior. Today, that wouldn't happen, but it happened in the 90s. When I was looking for a job and I talked to a woman who was around 60 years old and she told me about her very first job interview, she talked about the resume that she submitted, and on her resume, she had to put her height and her weight and attach a picture. And she was not applying to be a firefighter. She was applying for a job in an accountant's office, but it asked her height and her weight. And when she sat in for her first face-to-face interview, they asked her if she was planning to have children, if she thought she would be getting pregnant, and how her husband felt about her long hours. No one has ever asked me that in a job interview because I didn't have to find a job in that kind of environment. That was a luxury that was afforded me. And I'm lucky for that. But things change. People are so concerned about being politically correct these days, but that idea of being politically correct, it's almost an idea against civil discourse. It's about treating people with respect. And if people need to frame that in a way about being politically correct or not, that's okay. We have come a long way and we still have a long ways to go. And that's fine, but we need to have a little bit of fear and to treat the situation that we have right now with a little bit of respect. And that's okay.
My name is Ray Fleming DINNEEN, and I'm founder and executive director of Climb Wyoming. And we're a statewide nonprofit, and we're designed for single mothers, low-income single mothers, to discover self-sufficiency through career training and placement. When I see young women in Wyoming, I know that they have potential, and I hope for all of them that they can find a way in this state to find potential in themselves. And when there's struggles that hold them back, I don't want them to give up. So I hope that all young women can achieve what they would like for themselves and be able to dig deep and learn that they have the potential to do so. What we all know is that many living in poverty and also Climb Wyoming participants have struggled with barriers such as pregnancy, trauma, violence, addiction, or any combination of things. And what we know is that can often hold them back. And they need to discover that those barriers don't have to be what really creates something that they can't overcome. What we do is so important because we don't expect that single mothers, single parent families are going to come to us. We know that as Climb Wyoming, we reach out to those families and that they are struggling to make ends meet. They typically are often unemployed or working a number of jobs, and so we don't expect them to find this opportunity. Climb Wyoming works really hard to make sure that the opportunity comes to them. So that's really important part of what we do with Climb Wyoming. If there's a woman that hears my voice today that needs help, I want her to be courageous and know that she can tackle this, and for her to contact Climb Wyoming and let us do this with her.
I'm Cindy Johnson, and I'm the CEO of MOBILITAT. MOBILITAT is a software company, and we provide the technology that transit systems need to do a better job, a more effective job of providing door-to-door transportation. And I've been doing that. I started 35 years ago, started writing a grant for the Child Developmental Center. And after a while, I understood that parents oftentimes only had one vehicle to get their children to the Child Developmental Center and to come pick them up in 2.5 hours. Oftentimes that was impossible because dad had the car, dad would go to work, and mom had no way to get the children to the Child Developmental Center. And if you can't get your children there, what good is this wonderful health and human service that we provide here in Wyoming? But if we can't get our children there, what good is it? Well, that not only was true for children at the Child Developmental Center, but after 8.5 years, I worked at the Child Developmental Center, and my daughter went there also. And after this 8.5 years, we took that seed of others having the need to get to other agencies, and we spread that grant writing out amongst all these different agencies. And I remember not really even knowing what a grant was until I met Art Crouch. And if you're from Sweetwater County, there's buildings named after him, and he wrote a lot of grants, but he taught me how to write grants. And so then we got the first buses, and we were so happy. And then we found out that, oh my, there was more people who needed transit than we even thought. And one very passionate story after we started the Transit Authority, a gentleman, and I believe his name was Robert, he called one day and he said, "Can I get a ride?" And I said, "Well, of course you can." And he said, "Really, I can go to the library?" I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Well, where else can I go?" He said, "Can I go shopping?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "I live on the second story." And I said, "I think that's okay. Why are you telling me that?" And he said, "Well, because I'm in a chair." I said, "Oh, that's all right. We'll get you down." And he started actually on the phone tearing up. You could hear him tearing up. And he said, "I haven't been out of this apartment except to go to the doctor or any emergency medical items for 5 years." That was one of my, there's many, but that was my first inspiring story that I just have to share with people. When I see young women in Wyoming, I want to share with them we need our education. We really must complete our education. It's so important. And we need to be firm and know in our hearts who we are and what we want to accomplish, and never let anyone say, that's not a good idea. It is a good idea because you want to do it. And that, I want to say, that is what will inspire you, because it inspired me when I was just starting a company.
I am Debbie Disney, and I'm the Corporate Operations Manager for Timberline Hospitalities. I'm very honored to serve 11 GMs around the state. Actually, one of them is in Fort Collins, Colorado. We have 11 hotels in our portfolio, and basically what I do is help our hotels succeed, achieve their goals, and we are always just working together because our belief is together we're stronger, and we're always making friends one guest at a time. I view my role as a woman as a servant. I'm very passionate about the hospitality business. I was blessed with that. It's a gift. And what I do is I use that gift to help others and make them successful, and also to help them achieve their goals. And mainly in the hospitality business, I really like to watch my team. I also am part of the Wyoming Lodging and Restaurant Education Foundation. So I sit on the board, and then I also mentor, help judge on the competition days. And more than anything in the world, I just love to help others. When I see young women in Wyoming, I truly believe they should think about no barriers. There are no walls. It doesn't matter that they're a woman, and they will be able to achieve their goals just by focusing on it and achieving those goals.